the start of the movie, we see three agents sitting behind a table across from a visibly distressed woman. It's in Warsaw, and the year is 2030. The agent in the middle explains about a device that can erase memories, referencing the movie Men in Black. He tells the woman she has lost her old identity, but has gained a new one and a new life. Yet, the woman still asks them about a particular man who has changed her life. To understand how everything has gotten to this point, let's turn back the time to a few days earlier. We see a man crossing the Vistula River, from a war-torn town to the digitally advanced city of Warsaw. He looks lost and uncertain about what's waiting for him on the other side. Once they reach the bank, the boatman gives him a card he can use to start a new life. From their conversation, we learn that the man has no memories of his past. The boatman calls him Adam and assures him his memories will return. Soon, Adam meets with a fixer. He gives him the card, which the latter authenticates by placing it on top of another card. The shapes overlap, showing an image of a circle within a triangle. The fixer knows it's legitimately from the collector on the other side of the river, so he helps Adam. He brings him to a dilapidated and abandoned building compound. The fixer says no one has been living here for a long time, and that the city has had unresolved issues with the descendants of the owner. They climb a spiral staircase until they reach one of the higher floors. The unit the fixer is giving Adam has no furniture. Its windows are all taped and boarded up, and grime and dust have settled so much that it's like another layer of the floor. A lone bulb is above the foyer, but its switch is nowhere to be found. The only good thing about the apartment unit is that it has a functional tap and clean water. After helping Adam order his mattress online, the fixer leaves. Adam dreams about his oldest memories, which aren't that far in the past. He remembers the collector trying to identify him. He injects Adam with a microchip, which will serve as his new identity and his credit card. As he tries to blend in with the people, he finds out about the city's political situation. Inside a diner, he sees news about the Civil War and the bombings, particularly on the side of the river he left. The news also mentions the government assuring its people that they are protected, even though Adam seems lost. He doesn't seem to be out of place with the citizens. This means he has successfully assimilated himself into society. Although he still doesn't know anything about his past, he starts a new job at a corporate office as a janitor. His fellow janitor, Bernard, often called Bernie, informs him of his duties, the no-go zones, and the schedules of brownouts within the building. There are so many things to notice on the floor where Adam is assigned. First, the technology used is advanced. The workers are using a holographic style of flat screen, which they can expand using a hologram beside it. Even the vacuum cleaner Adam is using looks like it has come from a sci-fi movie. To be fair, the year is 2030, which means technology must have advanced far from what we know today. But the most eccentric is Bernie. He looks jolly, but it's undeniable that something seems off with him. As Adam cleans, he sees the floor manager, Gloria. She looks elegant, strong-willed, and far out of his league. Yet, he instantly falls for her. Gloria sees him too, and takes an interest in him. She calls him and asks him the Sphinx's riddle. What animal walks on 4 legs in the morning, on 2 in the afternoon, and on 3 in the evening? When he doesn't answer, she assumes that he's dumb. Bernie comes out of nowhere just to warn Adam about Gloria, but he can't take her off his mind. He goes to the workers' break room, where Gloria is socializing with others. He tries to answer the earlier riddle, but she cuts him off. She warns him not to mingle with office workers, implying strict hierarchical reasons. She even makes fun of Bernie, who is rumored to live in a broom closet. However, she walks out of the room and calls him. As it turns out, she likes a little flirting and goads him to invite her out. He does, but she declines. She even humiliates him in front of others, pretending that she's disgusted by his advances. Adam doesn't question it, though, because he can see that Gloria is into him as much as he is into her. When he comes home that night, he receives his package, the mattress he ordered a day before. As he eats his dinner, he hears a humming sound outside his apartment. To his surprise, he finds a Roomba cleaning the hallway. In the next scene, we see Adam and Bernie walking through a forest, along with a woman who has a kitty for a head, jogging on the trail. The surroundings look realistic, but in fact, it's simply a virtual reality. The employees are allowed to use the VR sets during their break. During their walk, Bernie talks about his childhood and how adults suspected him of having multiple mental disabilities. For him, he's as normal as possible. Then he asks Adam how he got to the other side of the river and why. Adam says he only wants to escape the attacks, but Bernie doesn't believe him. To avoid the topic, he asks Bernie if it's true that he lives in a broom closet. Bernie decides to show him. They first enter a room full of cleaning supplies. Then Bernie shows him a hidden door towards his living space. It's as peculiar as its occupant. It has no windows and looks like a prop-up tent for a forensic investigation. The dismal shelves contain old radio models, bottles of pills, and Rubik's cubes. On the other side, a lone television set is surrounded by other devices that fit perfectly in a museum featuring post-World War II gadgets. It's noticeable how there's no bed or a space for sleeping. Bernie explains that the company offered him the room when he had problems with house mortgage. Adam tries to make himself interested, but he can't dodge Bernie's questions. Who is he? And where did he come from? Adam continues to flirt with Gloria. When everyone has gone home, he leaves a single rose on her table. She appreciates the gesture, the thrill of being pursued by an unassuming yet attractive man. She still pretends to not like it, but she asks him questions about his properties. She wants to know if he's stable in life. From her perspective, if she dates him, then he must be equal to her. After all, she's an office manager, and he's a janitor. When one of the scheduled temporary brownouts happens, Adam takes the chance to kiss her. She kisses back. When the light returns, they see Bernie looking at them. She slaps Adam to make it look like she didn't like the kiss. In the next scene, we see Gloria walking home. She's passing by a large screen in the subway, which shows her an advertisement about real estate for families. This is a peek into the life they're living in this era. If you remember the microchip injected into Adam's hand earlier, then you might realize that everyone in Warsaw has microchips as well. This means that all information about a person is uploaded into the government's main database, which in turn makes almost everything personalized for each person. There are also cameras everywhere. This combination of microchips and cameras gives off the feeling that someone is always watching their every move. The citizens are used to it, but we may find it uncomfortable, especially when we realize the movie's setting isn't that far off from our era of social media security cameras. Adam is also walking home, contemplating the kiss and his life in general. When he comes home, he sees the dysfunctional light bulb and thinks it's time to light it. In his search for the switch, he accidentally finds an old radio, the type that seems to have been made in the 1950s, with all the knobs and dials. He tweaks it a bit, and soon he hears old music permeating the lonely room. Perhaps for the first time since he got to the other side of the river, he feels at peace. Adam doesn't try to hide his feelings for Gloria. He openly stares at her, admiring her beauty. Meanwhile, Gloria is thrilled, but she hides it behind disgust, as she has to be mindful that she's still the boss, and he's the janitor. One day, as Gloria checks something through her communication glasses, Adam and her subordinates see something behind her. One of the buildings has been bombed, and it's near Adam's residence. The employees scramble to leave the floor to safety, but Adam and Gloria grab this opportunity to have a fast coupling on one of the abandoned floors. After this brief but hot encounter, they take their time as they watch the bombed building collapse. Gloria says she's impressed with Adam. She even implies they can do it again some other time. However, she tells him that if she finds someone who gives her a sense of security, she'll follow him. Unfortunately, it's not Adam. With that, she thanks him for making her come, then leaves. Later, he walks home, passing through the rubble of the collapsed building. As he arrives at his apartment, he hears the voice of a man seemingly giving a set of instructions. He grabs a weapon, then enters his room. To his surprise, he finds a very old lady standing in front of the radio, from where the voice comes. Her name is Ursula, and she looks distinct with her hair ornaments and lead shoes. She also owns the Roomba Adam saw earlier, and she treats it like a real dog. After Ursula leaves, Adam wonders about how and why the radio is broadcasting a peculiar set of instructions. He listens to it. The next thing he knows, he's floating somewhere. Or that's how it feels. He feels weightless as the sensation of leaving his corporeal form takes over his consciousness. He sees an impression of a triangle with a circle on the wall before passing through it. To his confusion, he finds himself in the same kitchen as his apartment, although this one looks functional. He is talking to a man in a concerned tone. Then, a woman wearing a blue dress walks in to get a glass of water. Adam is stunned to know it's Gloria. The next day, he brings the radio to the office and shows it to Bernie. He thinks that his fellow janitor will recognize it, since he also has a collection of similar devices. He hopes that Bernie can answer his question about the radio. Who is that man broadcasting odd instructions, and how does the radio capture it? Bernie looks like he's about to cry as he marvels at the radio. However, when Adam tries to operate it, it doesn't work. Bernie suddenly gets angry and demands that he turn it off. Adam returns home to try the hypnosis thing again. As he explores, he realizes that the place he comes to is similar to his apartment, but at a different time. Before he further explores, he finds himself falling down the stairs, the radio smashing beside him a few seconds later. When he looks up, he sees Ursula looking down on him. Adam goes back to his work to plead with Bernie to help him fix it. Bernie has calmed down from his outburst earlier. He tells Adam he'll solve the Rubik's Cube first. With that said, he approaches Gloria and tells her he has something interesting to show her. She makes a condescending guess about what it is, and even tells him to stop following her when other employees walk past them. Yet, she promises to come to his unit to bang the lights out of him. Later, Adam and Bernie are on their way out of the building, with Bernie carrying his toolbox. Just as they reach the reception area, Bernie suddenly backs out, claiming he hasn't left the building before. Then his legs gave way. Concerned, Adam asks him if he's okay. Bernie simply instructs him to go search the internet for solutions, so Adam leaves him there. He finds an internet cafe nearby. The place looks dodgy, and it's more accurate to describe it as an underground club than a simple internet hub. Once he finds a free station, Adam starts his search. Unbeknownst to him, his online activity gets flagged by the National Security Bureau. Agent Jan, who has caught his search, wakes his companion to tell him they have a fugitive on hand. Adam tries to find another radio in the apartment. He kicks doors down and rummages through the cupboards. In one closet, he finds the blue dress he saw Gloria wearing in his first vision. Although he finds a radio, it's either dysfunctional or too old to use. In the end, he finds several radios from which he pieces the parts together to create a new one, using the manual he found online. He's unaware that the government has already marked him. He hears that lovely old song again, but he has to wait for some time before hearing that male voice. As he eats his lunch, he hears the radio broadcasting again, starting with tape B, recording 1. He sits down to listen, until he finds himself experiencing the sudden jolt of dreaming. In the next scene, we find Adam wrapping a package. He's in 1950s Poland, when the country was under Stalin's regime. Adam enters a compound, the same one as the current building complex. After getting cleared by the soldiers, he enters the building and rests at the first landing of the familiar spiral staircase. Up above, he playfully calls out a young girl who peeks at him. Then, he continues his climb up to the same floor and knocks on the same apartment unit as his. A man opens the door and receives the package, the same man he was talking to during his first vision. Adam suddenly wakes up when the Roomba hits his head. After gathering his wits, he realizes he's still in the apartment building, but in a different unit. That's when Ursula enters the room and asks him if he's seen her dog, referring to the Roomba that has crawled under a dresser. So, Adam is not the only one living in the apartment building. He doesn't know how long Ursula has been there, although by looking at the furniture around him, one can tell that the old woman has been cozily living there for quite some time. Adam realizes that the hair ornaments Ursula wears are the same as those of the young girl he saw in his vision. It would have been nice to know his neighbor, but Ursula seems as odd, if not more so, as Bernie. He asks her if she has another radio, as the one he used was just smashed again. She says yes. She brings it out, turns it on, and creepily lip syncs to the song playing. Adam has to endure the unnerving performance before he can take home the radio. In the next scene, we see Agent Jan and his companion approach their supervisor, Agent Maria. He reports the fugitive they have tagged, naming him Fugitive 2204, case 1977. Agent Maria rolls her eyes at the ridiculous way Agent Jan is talking, but she knows he's one of their leading agents. She gives them permission to do surveillance on the target and carry out preventive actions. Adam tries to mess with the knobs of the radio, hoping to hear the recording again. Eventually, he hears the tape I recording. He even finds the mini television set projecting the image of the man from his visions. He checks the newspaper and learns the name of the man. He was Professor E. Stefanski, a proponent of the first experimental television program. As the professor keeps repeating the phrase, "A triangle with a circle," Adam cries. He finally remembers who he was. The next day, he reports to work wearing a dapper suit. Much to Gloria's astonishment, he invites her on a date. That night, he brings her first to a Chinese restaurant. He tells her about the radio and how the broadcast is making him enter a trance-like state to travel to the past. He even gives instructions on how to tune in. But Gloria isn't paying attention. She's looking at the formal man inside the restaurant who has been intently looking at them. They don't know who he is, but Agent Jan is already doing well in tailing Adam. After their dinner, they walk towards Adam's residence. Just across from the building, a group of juveniles writes a radical message on the wall using luminescent spray paint. It says, "Better tomorrow was yesterday." When they reach Adam's floor, Gloria is amused to find him scattering confetti on the floor. He explains that the Roomba will love it. Then he instructs her to wait outside until he calls for her, perhaps to set up his devices first. Eventually, he invites her in. Just as Gloria expected, the unit looks bare and shabby, with only a mattress and a chair in front of an odd assortment of appliances. She knew since day one that Adam is a bum, living from paycheck to paycheck with no future prospects. Yet, she still finds him intriguing. She can't help but get drawn to him. She sits on the chair, listening to the advertisement on the radio, before it plays a mellow song. She comments that analog devices are illegal. But then, she points out that she didn't come here to watch television. A few moments later, they are entangled in each other's arms, sharing a few intense and erotic minutes of making love. After the deed, Adam admits that he thinks he loves her. This gives Gloria a reality check. A part of her tells her she's in too deep, and she must distance herself now. She tells Adam that it's nice to hear that, but he's not her type. She's looking for someone mature and responsible, someone to start a family with. If she's unlucky enough to get pregnant with his child, she might have to get rid of it. After saying that, Gloria leaves. It's only at that point she realizes that everything she said was a mistake, but she can't take her words back. She must stand by her decision. Adam is sad, as he realizes he may have lost the only reason for his existence there. A few minutes later, the radio starts broadcasting again, indicating that it's time. He lies down on the kitchen floor and waits for his third journey into the past. There, he sees the young girl peeking through the gaps in the door. He now knows she is the young Ursula, and she knows the men in the kitchen, who are currently looking at his physical body floating on top of the kitchen table. Adam passes through the door, floats around the men, and looks at his body. At once, his consciousness gets sucked in, and all of his memories seem to converge in his brain. He suddenly wakes up, delirious and bewildered, while the men around him celebrate his return. They all claim that this is worthy of getting the Nobel Prize, while Professor Stefanski tells everyone to give Adam some space. They call him Christoph, and from their conversation, he stays unconscious for a couple of minutes before waking up. Ursula enters the room to see him, but Stefanski gently tells his daughter to leave the room. Christoph tells them about his experiences, about the bleak apartment and crossing the river. But in the end, he breaks down, as he can't differentiate between dreams and reality. In the present, Gloria becomes worried about Adam. She asks Bernie about him, but the janitor won't say anything. So she returns to the apartment, only to find Adam unconscious on the floor. She brings him to the hospital. After the doctor examines Adam, she returns to Gloria to ask about her relationship with the patient. Gloria says she's his fiancée. The doctor then says her fiancé is in a coma and leads her to him. Gloria can't believe Adam would do something like this. She leaves the hospital, passing two men. She doesn't recognize that one of them is Agent Jan, the man from last night. Gloria returns to Adam's apartment to think about things. She's considering whether to tell him how she really feels. After taking a bath, she finds some clothes on a wall. She takes on a suit and pants ensemble, before taking an interest in a blue dress. She reports to work, but her mind is filled with worry for Adam. She demands to talk to Bernie, who brings her to his living quarters. There, she interrogates him about anything he knows about Adam. But the man is tight-lipped, saying he promised to be discreet. Gloria mocks him for having honor when he doesn't even have a decent sleeping space. Bernie rebukes her and says he's not interested. She fires back, saying he doesn't have to, because he doesn't need it. He's the company's first android, after all, and he's devoid of that primal human feeling of lust. Still, Bernie keeps his mouth shut about Adam. With no other choice, Gloria decides to visit where Adam came from the other side of the river. There, she is accompanied by the same boatman from earlier. She is led to a decrepit building where the collector resides. His unit is cluttered with what can be considered junk from the era of analog technology. He puts on a rectangular vinyl record that plays mellow blues, similar to the one she heard in Adam's apartment. She buys a radio and pays the collector with cash. She thinks that Adam's consciousness is traveling to the past. That's why he's in a coma right now. Back in the company, the agents have found Bernie in the ceiling with cable cords. They untie him. The cords don't even damage his neck. Soon, it becomes apparent that Gloria was right. Bernie is indeed an android, and he has recorded all of his interactions with a fugitive named Adam. They recover all of Bernie's data before finally decommissioning him. From everything that has happened, it's safe to conclude that the government doesn't allow any type of time travel and doesn't permit the use of analog technology. And it makes sense because it's harder to track, or better yet, to watch a person who uses analog. There's no virtual footprint left behind. In the next scene, we see Gloria returning to Adam's apartment, hauling the radio she bought. She has no idea what to do next, but when she receives a call from the National Security Bureau, she knows she has to avoid getting tracked. So she destroys her communication glasses and extracts the microchip from her hand. While taking a break from the excruciating pain, she hears the familiar hum of the Roomba. She follows it, entering another unit where she finds a photo of Adam. She gets surprised when Ursula suddenly appears. The old woman tells Gloria that Christoph used to be her crush. From here on, Gloria learns the mystery surrounding Adam Nowak. Ursula Stefanski is 83 years old and the only daughter of the genius Imfazi Stefanski. She saw how her father, together with his assistants, worked on Polish television. In those days, it was a choice between escaping through the Iron Curtain or giving one's life to the country, similar to today's sentiments. Professor Stefanski chose to escape using the broadcast waves. Christoph was the professor's favorite assistant and was brave enough to try the experiment. In the fall of 1952, she saw Christoph, Gloria's Adam, leave his body for a few minutes before coming back. However, when he did it again, he never returned. Ursula gives Gloria a wall mallet and instructs her to break down a concealed wall in Adam's unit. There, she will discover something to help her find Adam. Gloria takes it and uses her strength to break the wall. Once inside, she sees an apparatus that is still miraculously working, even after all these years. She also finds notes and pictures of other men who have undergone the experiment. She tweaks some knobs, then sits on the chair. She waits for the moment when she travels back to the past. She has no idea that soldiers have started raiding the building. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Agent Jan and his companion stand by Adam's unconscious body. Ursula attempts to stop the soldier by throwing them her Roomba, but she only gets shot. The soldiers are closing in. The next thing Gloria knows, she's walking up the spiral staircase, wearing the familiar blue dress. She walks up to Adam's unit, where a party is in full swing. She's aware that she has successfully traveled to the past because people were wearing clothes appropriate in the 50s. She finds Adam, and he sees her, but he's still wobbly from his excursion. His companions bring him to the bathroom to take some time. Gloria follows him. She kisses him, making Adam think that he's dreaming. He has a sudden insight that Gloria is short for phantasmagoria, which is exactly what he feels whenever he's with her. She demands that he wake up and come back to her, but he's not sure if that's possible, if the future is where he belongs. He calls the professor to the kitchen. There, he tells him that the experiment is successful, and it works both ways. As proof, Gloria walks in to drink water. Then she waves to Adam before walking out. The professor urges him to ask her how she did it. But when Adam looks for her, subtle changes have been made. He suddenly sees a woman with a cat head, as if he's in a virtual environment. He enters another room, and there, he finds her playing the piano. He also finds the professor's apparatus for the experiment. At the same time, in the present, this exact room is being raided by the soldiers. They find Gloria unconscious in the chair. They adjust the knobs. At the same time, Adam does it in the past. Then, both Gloria and Adam wake up. Adam sees the agents looking at him, and one of them welcomes him to the future, in Warsaw 2030. This brings us back to the start of the movie, where we see three agents facing a distressed woman, whom we now know as Gloria. They tell her the same things they told Adam. They have removed their memories of their past, allowing them to start a new identity and a new life. The government won't bother them again. They thank them for their sacrifice for their country to be reborn. But Gloria's mind still lingers on Adam. She wants to know where he is. Agent Maria is disappointed at the agent's incompetent work, so one of them brings out a device and flashes it in front of Gloria. Instantly, her memories become blank. She wonders why she's in this weird room with three strangers. Gloria starts her new life at a recycling facility, far from the glamorous managerial position she had in her past life. She looks like someone who's been missing something. As she enters the segregation room, she gets ready to wear her gloves. She starts picking up the trash when she notices the clean-shaven man behind her. He looks vaguely familiar. She sees him turning to look back at her several times, as if wondering where he's seen her. Perhaps later, she can ask his name, and maybe they can go on a date.